December 15th, 2019. Two researchers at opposite ends of the world, one in California, one in Switzerland, simultaneously administered DMT to volunteer subjects at exactly the same moment.
Neither research team knows about the other's experiment. The subjects have never met, don't speak the same language, and come from completely different cultural backgrounds.
But when they describe their experiences afterward, something impossible happens. They describe identical encounters with the same geometric entities, in the same crystalline landscape, receiving the same cryptic message about the nature of reality.
How is that possible? How can two brains, separated by 6,000 miles, access the same non-physical experience?
According to everything we know about neuroscience, it shouldn't be possible. But according to quantum physics, it might be inevitable.
Welcome back to the Quantum Soul. Today, we're venturing into the most mind-bending territory yet, where cutting-edge consciousness research meets quantum mechanics, and where the implications are so profound that some scientists are afraid to publish their findings.
We're talking about quantum consciousness, the radical theory that your mind doesn't just exist in your brain, but operates according to the same mysterious principles that govern reality at the subatomic level.
And if this theory is correct, then shared psychedelic experiences aren't just possible. They're proof that consciousness itself might be the fundamental fabric of reality.
Let's start with the quantum physics that's making neuroscientists lose sleep. At the quantum level, particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed. It's called superposition, and it defies everything our common sense tells us about reality.
Even weirder, when two particles become entangled, measuring one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance because it violated his understanding of how the universe should work.
But here's what's blowing minds in research labs around the world. Increasing evidence suggests that the brain itself operates according to quantum principles.
Dr. Roger Penrose and Dr. Stuart Hameroff have proposed that consciousness emerges from quantum processes in microscopic structures called microtubules inside brain cells. It's called orchestrated objective reduction, or ORC theory.
Critics initially dismissed this as impossible, arguing that the brain is too warm and noisy for quantum effects to persist. But recent discoveries are proving them wrong.
Researchers have found quantum coherence in photosynthesis, bird navigation, and even in enzyme reactions within living cells. The biological world, it turns out, is far more quantum than we ever imagined.
And if consciousness operates through quantum mechanisms, then some of the most puzzling aspects of psychedelic experiences suddenly start making sense.
Like the phenomenon of shared visions. If individual brains can become quantum entangled under certain conditions, then people having simultaneous psychedelic experiences might literally be accessing the same quantum information field.
Dr. Dean Radin at the Institute of Noetic Sciences has been documenting this for years. In controlled experiments, he's found statistical evidence that people under the influence of psilocybin can influence random number generators located in different buildings.
That shouldn't be possible if consciousness is confined to individual brains. But if consciousness operates through quantum fields that extend beyond the physical body, then remote influence becomes a testable prediction.
And the tests are yielding results that are making mainstream scientists very uncomfortable. We're talking about measurable, repeatable effects that challenge fundamental assumptions about the nature of mind and reality.
But it gets even stranger. Research teams studying DMT experiences have documented cases where people report encountering the same entities, receiving identical information, and even having conversations with these beings that continue across multiple sessions.
Dr. Andrew Gallimore, a neurobiologist studying extended DMT states, describes encounters with entities that seem to exist independently of individual minds. These beings appear to have their own agendas, their own knowledge, and their own relationship with human consciousness.
If these were just hallucinations produced by individual brains, we'd expect them to be unique to each person. But the consistency across subjects suggests we might be dealing with something that exists in a shared space of consciousness.
And quantum mechanics provides a framework for how this could work. If consciousness operates through quantum fields, then these fields could contain information that's accessible to any brain that achieves the right quantum state.
It's like tuning into a radio station. The information isn't being generated by your radio. It's being received from a broadcasting source that exists independently.
Dr. Amit Goswami, a quantum physicist who spent decades studying consciousness, puts it this way. Consciousness is the ground of being from which all reality emerges. The brain doesn't produce consciousness, it receives and processes it.
And if that's true, then psychedelic substances might not be creating exotic experiences. They might be removing the filters that normally limit our access to this broader field of consciousness.
Which brings us to research that's so sensitive, most of it remains classified. Because if consciousness really does operate through quantum fields that can be accessed and influenced, the implications for technology, communication, and even warfare are staggering.
Multiple sources have confirmed that government agencies have been quietly funding consciousness research for decades. Projects with names like Stargate, Grillflame, and Sunstreak investigated whether human consciousness could access remote information or influence distant events.
Officially, these programs were discontinued. Unofficially, researchers who worked on them report that significant breakthroughs were achieved, breakthroughs that remain classified to this day.
Dr. Hal Puthoff, a former CIA researcher, has gone on record stating that remote viewing, the ability to perceive distant locations through consciousness alone, achieved success rates far beyond chance in controlled laboratory conditions.
And if remote viewing is real, then consciousness clearly operates beyond the boundaries of individual brains. The question becomes, what else might be possible?
Recent developments in quantum communication technology are providing clues. Chinese scientists have achieved quantum teleportation over distances of hundreds of miles, instantly transferring quantum information through entangled particles.
If consciousness operates through similar quantum mechanisms, then the shared experiences reported in psychedelic research might represent a biological form of quantum communication.
Dr. Henry Stapp, a quantum physicist at UC Berkeley, argues that consciousness and quantum mechanics are fundamentally connected. In his view, consciousness is what causes quantum wave functions to collapse into specific realities.
This suggests that consciousness isn't just observing reality, it's actively participating in creating it. And if multiple consciousnesses can become quantum entangled, they might be able to co-create shared experiences in ways we're only beginning to understand.
The implications are mind-bending. If consciousness can influence quantum systems, and quantum systems underlie all physical processes, then consciousness might have far more power to shape reality than we've ever imagined.
But here's where things get really interesting. Researchers studying meditation, prayer, and other consciousness practices are finding measurable effects on physical systems. The power of intention, it turns out, might be more than just wishful thinking.
Dr. Lynn McTaggart has documented hundreds of experiments showing that focused intention can influence everything from plant growth to healing rates in distant patients. The effect sizes are small, but statistically significant and repeatable.
And when groups of people focus their intention together, the effects are amplified. It's as if consciousness becomes more powerful when it's coherent and synchronized.
This might explain why indigenous ceremonies involving psychedelic substances are typically conducted in groups. The shared consciousness state might create a field effect that amplifies the experience for everyone involved.
Dr. Rupert Sheldrake's research on morphic fields suggests that information can be transmitted through non-physical channels when living systems are in resonance with each other.
His experiments show that when animals learn a new behavior in one location, the same behavior becomes easier for the same species to learn in distant locations, as if the learning itself creates a field that other members of the species can access.
If human consciousness operates through similar fields, then the insights gained in psychedelic experiences might be contributing to a collective pool of knowledge that becomes accessible to others.
This could explain why shamanic traditions around the world, despite having no historical contact, developed remarkably similar techniques for accessing altered states of consciousness.
And it might explain why the current renaissance in psychedelic research is happening simultaneously across the globe. Perhaps the collective human consciousness is ready to integrate this knowledge.
But here's what's keeping researchers up at night. If consciousness really does operate through quantum fields, then everything we think we know about privacy, individuality, and the boundaries of the self might be illusions.
Your thoughts, your memories, your most private experiences might not be as private as you think. If consciousness is fundamentally connected at the quantum level, then mental privacy might be a temporary evolutionary adaptation rather than a fundamental truth.
Dr. Dean Radin's research suggests that under certain conditions, people can access information from other minds without any normal sensory communication. He calls it anomalous cognition, and his data shows effect sizes that are small but undeniably real.
And psychedelic substances seem to dramatically amplify these effects. People report not just seeing through other people's eyes, but literally experiencing memories and emotions that aren't their own.
If this is real, and the scientific evidence is increasingly suggesting it is, then consciousness might be far more collective than individual. What we call self might be just one node in a vast network of interconnected awareness.
The therapeutic implications are staggering. If trauma, addiction, and mental illness can be addressed through this deeper level of consciousness, we might be looking at healing modalities that work faster and more completely than anything currently available.
Dr. Robin Carhart-Harris's research shows that psychedelic therapy can produce lasting changes in personality, creativity, and life satisfaction with just 1 or 2 sessions. The changes seem to come from accessing perspectives that transcend individual limitations.
But here's the question that's going to haunt you. If consciousness really is collective at the quantum level, what does that mean for free will, personal responsibility, and individual identity?
Are we separate beings making independent choices, or are we expressions of a larger consciousness that's exploring itself through billions of apparently individual perspectives?
And if we're all connected at this fundamental level, then what we do to others, we're literally doing to ourselves. The golden rule might not be moral philosophy, it might be quantum physics.
These questions aren't just academic anymore. They're becoming practical considerations as we develop technologies that can influence consciousness directly.
Next episode, we're diving into the cutting-edge research that's bringing science fiction into science fact. We'll explore how researchers are using technology to induce mystical experiences, create shared virtual realities, and even transfer memories between brains.
You'll hear about the secret military research into consciousness weapons, the breakthrough experiments in digital telepathy, and the terrifying possibility that consciousness itself might be hackable.
We'll also reveal the underground network of researchers who believe they've made contact with non-human intelligence through consciousness-altering technologies, and why some of them are afraid to publish their findings.
Plus, the shocking discovery that ancient monuments around the world might have been designed as consciousness-amplifying technologies, and how modern science is finally understanding what our ancestors knew about the nature of reality.
Right now, you should see the next episode appearing, Digital Consciousness, When Technology Meets the Soul.
What we're about to reveal next will challenge everything you thought you knew about the relationship between mind and machine, and why the future of human consciousness might depend on understanding the quantum nature of reality. The boundaries between science and magic are disappearing, and what emerges might be more extraordinary than any fiction ever imagined.
Don't stop now. We're about to explore technologies that could transform human consciousness itself, and the race to understand these powers before they transform us.